Welcome back, War Room fans. I know. Calm your enthusiasm. It is insane. The Pacific map. Here it is in all its glory. It's finally up, guys. I finally decided to get around to do a Pacific map Japan video. So I set up basically just the Pacific map. So we can see it's all the pieces that we're going to be talking about are all right here. So now that everybody's calmed down, let's get down to business here. So one of the things about Japan is, unlike G40, okay, in War Room, it is traditional Axis and Allies victory conditions for the Axis. And what that means is the Axis powers have to conquer either Moscow, London, or Washington. They need two of the three, okay? No more of this Japan cheating and just taking Delhi and Sydney and in turn 7 declaring victory and we move on. So, if you're the Japanese player, the likelihood of you taking Moscow and London are 0. The likelihood of you taking Moscow and Eastern United States is 0. So, do not let your hearts be troubled, as a famous Fox commentator would once say. Japan, though, in the traditional vein of Axis and Allies, though, is Japan is the kingmaker for the Axis. Germany is powerful, but they cannot win this game by themselves. Japan needs to go hog wild in this game. And if they do that, it makes Germany's chances of winning the game so much easier. Okay? One of the things Japan has to deal with, though, is unlike basically every country, Japan is being assaulted on all sides at the beginning of this game. So let's go through that. So right off the bat, they got India with their factory right there threatening Southeast Asia. They got to deal with China. They have the issue with the Russians on the northern border. They obviously have the Americans coming in from the east, and they're going to be coming hot and heavy with their huge navy and air power. They also have to worry about Anzac down here. So every front has an enemy on their front, okay? So that makes it very difficult for Japan because everybody's coming after them. Now, one of the things I have found playing now through the 2 games that you've seen on my videos, a couple of games that I did before I did the videos, is I've come to the determination that in this game, especially with Japan, you have to come up with a plan of attack. What are you going to do? And once you determine that, you have to stick to the plan, thick or thin. Meaning, let's say you go, well, we're doing an Anzac crush. We're coming down here. Once you decide that's our plan, that's what you do. If the Americans go to the northern route, you don't stop halfway through the Anzac crush and try to redirect back north. You have to continue to move forward, thinking 1 turn ahead, 2 turns ahead, and finish out the plan, okay? So, in the big picture of this game, the easiest way Japan can help Germany is through attacking the British. That's their primary goal, okay? Australia and India. They need to get the UK starting to take a lot of stress. And they can accomplish this goal by threatening Australia and taking it, but specifically India. Japan has to always make India like their #1 goal. That is imperative. Their second goal behind India is we have to figure out a way to get up in here into Russia where we don't take a lot of casualties, but then we can start putting stress on Russia and coming in on that backside because there's 2 oil up there, there's 2 iron. It also just makes it very difficult for Russia if Japan can get up in there, okay? So I'm thinking on this video, because Japan is really a country we could probably spend 2 hours talking about. But in this video, we're just going to talk about basically a Calcutta crush idea and how do we handle this Russian front, okay? So I'm going to get set up here and we're going to talk about the Calcutta crush war room style. Okay, guys, let's talk about the Calcutta crush war room style, okay? One of the things about war room is I focused in just on Southeast Asia, okay? And the main reason why I did that is because these are basically, oops, let me move my command staff around. These are basically all the troops that have to go into India, okay? Because of the way the game works with the 1-turn delay and the amount of distance Japan has to cover, if we look at like the 44th, okay, that's your largest, this is Japan's largest stack. This is their main, attack force, but they're all the way up here in Japan off screen, okay? So troops coming off Japan, they have to go into P0 up here, just barely off the screen, and then they come down in here into P14, okay? That's their opening move. Now notice the 44th, okay? Let's say the goal is I want to get them over to India. If the 44th comes down here, they can go P15, I9. That's turn 2. Turn 3, they're up here. Turn 4, they're in India, okay? This is turn 1. Now notice this. Turn 2 is French Indo. Turn 3 is Burma. Turn 4 is India. So it doesn't matter if you go across or you come around, it's 4 turns, okay? That's if you're bringing troops out of Japan. Basically anything from pretty much, this point over is 3-4 turns out, okay? That's too long to take out India, okay? India is a 5 factory. If you're not dealing with this right off the bat from turn 1 at the end, they build 5 units. The end of turn 2, they build 5 units. The end of turn 3, they build 5 units. So if you don't deal with India until turn 4, they're going to have 15 additional units just in India, okay? So, and that's a long time in this game. 4 turns, we don't know what China's doing, what the United States is doing. That plan takes way too long, okay? So here's what I'm proposing, okay? Now, there's 2 ways to go at this. The first way to go at it is we have to be a little bit concerned about China, okay? Because it seems like the big move from the Allies on the Pacific map right now is send the 60th into Burma and the 103 into Burma, okay? And bring in these planes, okay? I actually think you want to entice the Allies to do that. And I'm going to show you why. And how you can entice them to do that is when you're bidding, you bid 1, okay? Just bid 1. Because remember, China can't bid. But you want to bid over China. Britain, on the other hand, is most likely also going to bid 0 because they're going to want to get all their oil for that first turn of builds. So it's highly likely that with a bid of 1, you'll beat both Britain and China, okay? So if you do win the bid, you bid to go last because you want them to come in here and attack the 30th, okay? You want to draw them in. Get them out of India, okay? So here's what I'm proposing on your moves. So the 102nd might come down here into Indochina, or they might come up in here. We don't know what they're going to be doing with the 102nd. Sometimes they come into Indo, sometimes they come up here. But for what we're going to do, it doesn't matter, okay? So so when you're writing out your commands, you send in the 95th up into here, okay, to help reinforce. You send the 17th as your second move up in there to reinforce, okay? Your third move, you send the 15th in here, okay? On the fourth move, up here in Manchuria, we're going to send the 13th down here to Hong Kong, okay? So now we've done 4 moves. Your fifth move is you're going to send the 14th off of the Philippines into Indochina. So right here, we're covering Indochina if the 102nd comes in. We have Hong Kong covered with these guys, okay? So that right now we've done 3, 4, we've done 5 moves, okay? Our 6th move off the map up in Japan is the 11th. They're coming down here into the sea. Actually, you could bring them out also into Hong Kong to reinforce the mainland just in case China comes in, okay? The idea here is we're trying to get our strat bombers down there. We got 3 strats. We got 1 in the 11th, 1 in the 13th, 1 in the 14th, okay? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 6 moves, okay? Your 7th move, you bring up your fleet here. Your 8th move, Singapore comes up. Your 9th move, Sumatra comes up, okay? So now, since you've drawn them in, you now have an invasion fleet to come into India, because remember, they're going to have units under construction. They're not going to go until the end of turn 2. So in this scenario, you know, they've got a pretty good stack coming in here. So they're going to have, let's see, 5 infantry, 2 artillery and an armor, and 2 fighters against your 4 fighters and against your 2 artillery, okay? In this specific battle up here, normally I would say you want to send these guys into anti-air, but remember you also have a carrier plane, so you're going to have 5 planes. Put everything into ground. Don't even worry about their fighters shooting down your fighters, okay? Everything goes into ground. Your infantry goes into offensive. They don't play defensive. So you got 6, 8, 10, and then 5 fighters for 15. So you got 25 combat dice going in on the ground. You're trying to eliminate every possible ground unit, okay? Even if you do a mutual destruction, these guys invade next turn, okay? Now they do have guys off the map over here, which will be a reactionary force, but you're gonna still have your aircraft carrier, and you're still gonna have all these. And remember, all these bombers and everybody's coming over here, okay? You gotta put it on India right off the bat. You just have to crush it in and go all out. There's a little bit of risk here, okay? Now, a different approach to it is, so let's reset just briefly here. So here's what they got. So the other path you can take, okay, is you bid to go first. The negative with bidding to go first, though, or let me just finish this out real quick, is so regardless of how the battle is, you're going to have these 2 air stacks here. You're going to have these 2 air stacks come in, so you got 2 bombers there, and then you're going to have the 14th, which you could keep in Indochina or move them up. So now you're going to have 5 fighters, 3 strats, in a carrier plane, okay? More than likely, this fleet here, the 2nd, which is sitting over in I-2 right here, more than likely the British player is not going to move them to here. They're going to leave them in the Indian Ocean, or they're going up into the Med. So you're not going to really have to worry about this fleet, more than likely, okay? The other thing about it is so basically we're going to bring in, the 15th is sitting here, or the 17th is in here. So let's move these guys off just for a second. So this is your basic startup, right? Okay, if we're just looking at Southeast Asia. The other option is you bid to go first, okay? If you bid to go first, you could move the 46 in, you could move the 30th in, move the 85th out to I-10, move the 78th out to I-10, move the 9th to I-10, so that's 4 moves, okay? We can forego the 15th coming in, leave them over here in J5. So we're just going to bring down these 3 groups. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 8 moves. Okay. Then what we can do is we can bring in a reserve force off the Philippines. So they're here. Okay. So on turn 1, they're here. Turn 2, this invasion fleet's here. Or turn 1, they're here. So on turn 2, they invade. Turn 2, these guys come in. And then on turn 3, they can invade. So you have a follow-up force. Okay, reinforcements coming in. Okay. Now, the problem with this plan, well, let's not call it a problem. Let's say here's what you're going to set up, though. Here's the situation. If that's, let's say you bid to go first and you get to go first and you're sitting there just like that. And India has written commands to do the Burma crush, okay? They're going to cancel those orders, okay? They're not going to go in there. That's just too much power for them, okay? Well, actually, that's not exactly true, because these guys are all going to come in on at the end of the air phase. These guys none of them can reach there. So that's what you're going to have in there, okay? Plus your carrier plane. So you'll have that plus a carrier plane. It might be tempting, but since you have, your initial move is here, they're not going to come in because they're going to go, well, wait a minute, they can invade India. If we go into here, these guys can go into here, okay? So really what it comes down to is you're kind of covered both ways with this opening move. You have air units sitting over here. So you have the guys out of Japan are here. You have the guys out of Manchuria are here. You have the guys off the Philippines are here, okay? So you're kind of covered, because if the 102nd comes into here against a bomber and a fighter, they don't have any artillery. So you're going to get 7 ground shots on them. Now they're going to take it regardless, because you don't have, unless you get really lucky and roll 6 yellows on 7 dice. So these guys will have to bounce. And they'll take it, but that's okay. Losing Indochina is not a big deal. It's 1 stress and 1 OSR. You're not crying about it, but you're hitting these guys. If they come up here into Hong Kong, well, they're definitely toast, okay? So then at the end of the second turn, then these guys, or at the end of the first turn, then these guys come up and they're ready for the second turn, where now he's got production of 5 guys. On his second turn, depending on what's going on this side of the map, over here, if Italy is doing a Middle East crush, well, the 3 units in Iran or in Middle East are in a real predicament. Which way do they want to go? Back to India or trying to defend the oil in the Middle East? The key, though, here in this one I'm talking about is you at least have a second wave, okay? So on turn 2, the 72nd can come up, You could even dump the 25th, you know, but that, and then the 25th and the 54th. Now, granted, it's only 2 infantry, but they could come up into I-9 or even stay back in P-15, and they can be your reinforcements on turn 4, okay? The thing about it, guys, is Japan has so many land stacks. Their power is so diffused, and I'm only showing a small section of their of Japan. You have to trust in moving these little guys around, forming them up. You go, well, it's only 2 infantry, but this is basically all you got. This is your entire kill India force. So you're going to have to manage them. And you might have to take some chances, you know. I'll put your Air Force in ground support. They have 2 fighters. Down here, they have the 12th, you know, so they could come in here. You know, the 12th from Australia can come off of Northern Territory on the first turn and go to I-9, and then they can come up on the second turn. But more than likely, you're going to catch them off guard on this Calcutta crush. So this 12th won't even be there until they realize what's going on until the second turn, okay? So they're going to come up on the second turn because they're going to fly off into P-17, P-16. Well, let me look at my map here again. They might not even be able to make it. They might not even be able to come up here until, let me see here. I'm doing a little math here. 1, 2. Yeah, so you don't even scratch that. I was just looking at it. I thought they could make it up, but the 12th can't make it. So what you see from Britain is what they got. Okay? So ideally, this is what you want. You want to get these strat bombers up here. Because remember, at the end of the first turn, they're going to more than likely build 5 guys. Okay? Now, depending on the situation, okay, how you look at it, maybe you send the strats in to kill the reinforcements, or you just say, to heck with it, we're going in and we're just going to start rolling dice. Because we have more ground units, we have more air units, we have a carrier plane. We're going to take our chance. Even if it's embattled, they bring some more guys over, we're going to give it our best for 2 turns, okay? Because remember, the second turn, you can also bring in the 17th for ground support, okay? Now remember, since we brought our guys out on the second turn, the 77th will be here, so at least on the third turn, you're going to have 2 more infantry and an artillery to come in to support the third attack, or the second attack on the third turn, okay? It's almost like it's an all-in plan if you're going after India. If that's your initial goal of the game, we're going to take out India first to really start putting the stress on Britain, okay? Because if you knock them out and can hold this, Britain can no longer reinforce China. They can no longer reinforce the Middle East. The Middle East is now open to you. But it also opens up the opportunity to start coming down this way, okay, and start concentrating on taking out Australia, okay? So this is basically, in my opinion, how you do a Calcutta crush war room style. You have to use all the units down here in coordination, and you just have to go at it. You're not going to have overwhelming odds. There is going to be a little bit of luck involved here. Okay? So, you know, but hey, that's how all big plans work in any game. If you're going to do an all-in strategy, sometimes it does come down to, well, if the dice go fickle on me, it's pretty much well over. But getting these bombers down here will obviously ramp up your land attack, but also if you kind of maybe hesitate for 1 turn, you want to wait for the 77th to come up and do the turn 3 attack, you can at least send in the strats to, you know, kill the reinforcements. If you're concerned about what's happening over in the Middle East, You could send a strat bomber into Iran, maybe blow up the rail so they can't rail in anymore. Which isn't bad for Japan. If you blow up the rail line in Iran, it doesn't really matter because you're just going to go here to Iran. It's just one move and then go up into the Caucasus. So it's not like it's interrupting your mass transport system or anything like that because you're not going to be really using the rail line anyway. So take a look at it and let's put some thought into this because I think this is really the only way Japan can really take out India in this game. If you're going to want to wait, well, I'll take it out in turn 4 or 5. It might be way too long for that. I mean, India might have 20-something guys in it at that point if you wait till like turn 5. And then at that point, it's almost impossible to take India. And especially if they get aggressive, once they start realizing they have enough guys, they might even start attacking you. And, you're not going to be able to get that many guys because remember, as I said, the 44th is your largest army. And it's 4 turns away to India. It's 3 turns away to here. The opening move we just did was all 9 commands. So you can't even get the 44th off of Japan until turn 2. So that means it doesn't arrive here till turn 4. It's not attacking India until turn 5. Okay? So as you guys can see, there's a lot of time involved here for Japan to be moving around to Southeast Asia. So I guess the last thing I'm going to say is, so we just laid out a Calcutta crush on how to do it with our starting units, not relying on reinforcements that we're going to purchase and bring down because they're too far away. But the other thing is we get over here, nothing's moved. Okay? So that's one of the negatives of this plan, is that you're just staying status quo over here. Nothing's moving. Now, we've covered Hong Kong with all those planes, but if they go up here into your factory into Peiping, you might have some problems. And we haven't even discussed Russia. I think I'm going to do a different video on Russia. Because Japan really does have, this is one opening move. That's an opening type move, turn 2, turn 3. You saw that when on our very first video when we did the Anzac Crush. That's an opening move. In turn 2 or turn 3, get everything set and go into Russia. Okay? I haven't figured this one out yet, and I'm not really sure this is even viable, which is the let's go after America. I'm still trying to figure that one out because I don't think right now there is any reason for Japan to really try to take the fight to America and start fighting over on their side of the Pacific. I think that just takes you too far away from Japan. It takes you too long to get guys to come up there as reinforcements. You're fighting in like their home waters, we'll say. I think that's just bad. So basically, Japan has the Aussie strategy, the Russian strategy, the Indian strategy, and then we have China. China, in my opinion, you just attack them when you have like a spare command or two. You maybe whittle them down if you have a spare command or two with some air power. Because at the end of the day, you're going to spend a lot of time taking out China. And what are you going to get for it? You're going to get 6 OSR and an iron. And you're going to lose some troops. Okay? I don't think taking China as a focal point is the winning way to go. So, as I said at the beginning of the video, you have to decide where we're going. You can't do all three. heck, doing 2 of them, like, well, we're going to do the India crush, and then we're going to start coming up into Russia. You only have 9 commands, and you get strung out real quick. It's very hard to concentrate power with just 3 moves. And then we're not even dealing with what's going on down here, okay? If the U.S. gets aggressive, they get down in here off the Solomon Islands. What is this, P-18? And you're still not moving the fleets. They're like, man, they are so distracted up here in Russia or India. Well, they can jump P-18 to P-15 and jam 2 money islands, okay? You might go, well, what are you talking about? Well, over here they have the 73rd and the 50th. If they come off on turn 1, they're here in P-18. Turn 2, they're in P-15. Turn 3, they're in Borneo and Sumatra. Okay? Now, granted, this is aggressive U.S. play. But when we talk about the United States is in the same position Japan has. These starting units, this is what they have for like the first 4 turns of this game. They've got to come up with plans to make some serious hay with those guys. They can't just stand pat and go, well, we'll just hang out until the reinforcements show up. Well, by the time the reinforcements show up, the war might be over. So if you're playing the United States on the Pacific side, you've got to be aggressive with these guys. Just like this is a very aggressive opening move. We have to be aggressive in this game. With 1-turn delays, with the size of these oceans, it takes so many turns. The farther Japan gets away from Japan, because remember, that's their only factory point, basically. The factory in Peiping is just dropping 2 guys into China every turn just to control China. Japan is a far away from over here. It takes you too long, okay? So let's think about what I talked about over here. And, you know, I'm going to post this on Board Game and all that kind of stuff. And let's have a discussion about it, because I do think taking out the UK by putting the stress on them is the key to victory for the Axis. And the only nation that can really do that is Japan. It's Japan's job to stress the UK out of the war. Okay? So I'll talk to you guys later.